Supered friends. Loved, loved, loved all of the templates, tricks, and tips that Frank Ferris from Coefficient showed us. It was a great way to see a power user dive right in and share some amazing use cases. I also loved that Matt showed us his approach to using Coefficient and how it saved him a couple of hours each month for a single task. Imagine how many hours he's saving with everything else that he uses Coefficient for. We also introduced the Coefficient and Supered partnership, so users with both Coefficient and Supered can get 20% off their first year subscription of both systems. Don't worry, I'll share a link with you to find out more. Let's check out what they built and how.
I like a lot of tools. I have actually been banned from some tools because I've demoed so many. So I think I'm going to demo ban less. One of the ones in the future that I demoed or that I was going through, and I've actually been a big proponent of not having this, is if you have a CRM, I would say that Google Sheets were existential threats to the adoption of a CRM. And that was because once you have it, it becomes the source of truth and people are no longer using the CRM. And that's why I got so excited. And I would talk about Coefficient, people would ask me about Coefficient, and then Coefficient came out with something called a two-way sync, which means the Google Sheet is your CRM. And it actually is adoption of it. And it creates so many net new opportunities, specifically in the HubSpot ecosystem. And it's a big freaking deal, specifically with extending objects. And now if you know how to use a Google Sheet, you can take all that breadth of knowledge, which everybody has if you're human, because you have to use Sheets in some capacity, and now apply that to a CRM. And it just takes away the frustration and friction. And so I'm so excited to be able to apply that same thing to HubSpot. So no, as we do this, I'm going to show a real use, like just say what we're doing, just to start showing some use cases, how we're using team commissions, and it'll be at the end. Today, Frank's going to start showing some of these like more sophisticated use cases on how you can use Coefficient to expand the capacity and capabilities of HubSpot Plus. We use the word HubSpot Plus specifically because if you have HubSpot, you do never have one CRM that is your source of data. You can now turn essentially your Google Sheet into a CDP almost, to a place where you're normalizing data and executing. Frank, I know you're going to show some cool ones. You're going to talk about snowflakes. It's going to be great. From here, Frank, hand it over to you to lead us through these use cases, and I'll be your hype man as we talk about them. I'll stop you because you'll probably just be doing things, and I'll show how Super's using Coefficient for a very tactical execution at the end of the month for like intimate commissions. Okay, Frank, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks for that intro, Matt. And with such a big fan and a hype man like you make my job pretty easy to show off the product a little bit. I'll start with a little introduction. So obviously my name is Frank. I've been working in data analytics and especially spreadsheets for over 10 years now, constantly trying to tackle this challenge of getting data from systems into spreadsheets. So I was a fairly early user of HubSpot. I was running my own startup. This would have been in 2015, set up HubSpot as their own CRM. So I got pretty comfortable using it there, both on the admin side and selling myself. From there, I went on to work for a Salesforce consulting org. Sorry, Matt, I don't know if I'm going to get kicked off the show for mentioning Salesforce here, but I was working for a Salesforce implementation partner where, again, I saw this problem so much because we were pushing all of our customers towards getting back into their CRM, using Salesforce, using Tableau, owned by Salesforce, obviously, getting out of the spreadsheet, that same problem that Matt was mentioning. But at the end of the day, we kept seeing our customers going back into the spreadsheets. So it just made a lot of sense to me back then that this was going to be something people needed. And even internally, as a pretty large Salesforce implementation partner with 1,000 employees, we kept going back into the spreadsheets ourselves. So we, of course, would build these beautiful BI dashboards for our main day-to-day dashboards to power the business. But those would often take like weeks or sometimes a month to plan and build something really sophisticated. If we wanted quick analysis, we would always build it in either Excel or Google Sheets. So at the time, it was constantly getting this data out of Salesforce into Sheets. This was pre-Coefficient, so I found some of my own like workarounds and free tools to get the data into spreadsheets. And then about 2.5 years ago, I discovered Coefficient when we launched on Product Hunt. And I was just blown away by how much easier this could make my life and my job. And I literally quit that job within a week to join the team here. And it's been an amazing growth story and tons of fun since joining. And that's really what powers our mission here at Coefficient, is democratizing data by letting business users work with the data in the places that they're most comfortable, which often for tons of business users like me, that's a spreadsheet. And we often like to say if spreadsheet formulas were a programming language, they would be the most powerful or most common programming language that there is. And I think that leads nicely into what you're most excited about, Matt, which is the two-way sync. So Coefficient really started with the one-way sync into Google Sheets, and now we do bi-directional or two-way sync. So again, this is getting data from any other business system you're working with, whether that's Snowflake, Salesforce, QuickBooks, Shopify, or even a spreadsheet itself, and pushing that data back into HubSpot, whether to create new records or update existing records. And again, this is just taking advantage of the beautiful flexibility of spreadsheet formulas and how most business users are comfortable writing their VLOOKUPs and their sum ifs to get the data formatted in the right way, build the exact logic they want for their backs. Awesome. So with that, if it's a good time, Matt, I could jump into screen sharing, maybe walk through some of what we built.
Yes, it is. I'm gonna call a few things out. I used to be a Salesforce user, so it is okay. I'm a convert. I used to be a Dynamics user, and there is all the same. Everybody ends up in a Google Sheet if you are in the C-suite. That's what C-suites are most comfortable with. And you can make some pretty great visualizations in Google Sheets now without ever having to use the lookers, the tableaus, or the BI. So I am so excited. Show us, and what I'm talking about. So show us the goodies, Frank. Show us the goodies.
Alrighty, let's dive into it. So we'll get to writebacks very soon, I promise. But I'm going to start off on this page, partly because I'm just proud of it. This is how I got my foot in the door at Coefficient, was building these beautiful dynamic Google Sheets dashboards. They brought me onto the team here because I'm the spreadsheets guy. I know about every niche Google Sheet or Excel chart and pivot table trick there is. The team brought me in here and they're like, build us some really beautiful templates. This shouldn't even look like a spreadsheet. This should look more like a Tableau BI dashboard. And that's what we put together here. So this is one of our free templates that's available on our website. It's a sales operations package. And basically we've predefined what HubSpot filters and fields you need to power this template. So you just save a copy of this and it automatically will import the right data from the deals object, in this case, to power this. So we have this one here, and then just quickly glance at the second one, which I think is a great use case that comes up a lot, similar to commission planning a little bit, like Matt, you'll get into. But this is setting targets, which is another thing that we've often heard from our customers is quite difficult to manage directly in HubSpot. Often finance teams want to manage their targets in a spreadsheet where you can have a simple targets table by month and sales rep, for example, and have all of that combined with your live deals data or your forecast in this case, where we're showing our full sales funnel, as well as what the year's looking like relative to our target, including open pipeline by stage or forecast category. Just wanted to highlight those quickly, but then we'll jump into a new spreadsheet here and we'll get into bidirectional sync, but we'll start by importing a little sample data set just so we have something to play with here. You can install Coefficient for free from the Google Sheets marketplace. There's really no blockers. We're a PLG company. We try to make it as easy as possible to get started. And once you install it, you'll always have it in this top extensions menu up here. And to kick us off, let's do a new import. So you can see I have some existing imports already on the spreadsheet, but we'll just start fresh. Import from, I've already connected to HubSpot, but this just takes a second to put in your HubSpot credentials the first time you or a client of yours does it. And here we'll do an import from our contacts object. You can see any of the main objects you would expect would be available to pull the data from or push the data back to. We'll choose some basic fields to get started. Any fields that are on the main object we're looking at, so in this case, the contact, are available. But you can also grab any fields from associated objects. So like we'll get some examples in here from the company as well. And I'm going to pull in owner ID so we can also show how you could change the owner of a contact using writebacks as well, which is a pretty popular use case. Grab those and get the contact owner's first name. We'll get the contact created date. Obviously, any custom fields that you have in here will also be available. Company name, so it's coming from the associated object. And then I've created a couple of new custom fields in our HubSpot sandbox. So we can try writing back some of these fields, which are coming actually from a fake Snowflake sandbox that we've set up. So I have all the fields that I like picked out. Again, very user-friendly, drag and drop. If I want to rearrange these, I can add filters, any type of filter you would expect to be able to add directly in HubSpot reporting. But in this case, we'll just keep it simple and import all of these fields exactly as they are. Awesome. And we're immediately encouraged to set up an automatic refresh schedule. Of course, this is why people are coming to Coefficient for the reporting, is so you don't have to come in and manually export a CSV every day. So I can just say I want to refresh this, let's say once a day at 9 a.m. is fine. Okay, and there we go. We have our new tab was created, this contacts import. So this is what any Coefficient import will look like regardless of the data source. All the data coming in down below. And of course, it's very common to want to add calculated formulas over on the right-hand side for reporting, so you can build up pivot tables and dashboards. Let's do some quick examples. So Let's say we wanted to update this app usage. This is a custom numeric field that I've set up in my HubSpot sandbox. And let's say that data is actually stored in our Snowflake instance of how often users are interacting with our app, let's say. So here we're not gonna build a Snowflake import on the fly, but you can do this using custom SQL statements or just choosing fields from Snowflake. And in this case, we have some kind of matching field, which would be important. So HubSpot contact ID or email. And then we want to pull in this all-time app opens and push this back to HubSpot. We see our users doing this all the time because often you don't want to wait for your data engineering team to spend 2 days building out some kind of data pipeline to organize the data, maybe build some logic around it. You can do this as a spreadsheet user, just so simply using a formula like VLOOKUP, or the more modern version that I really love is XLOOKUP. And we'll just do that quickly we'll do an XLOOKUP on this one here, pull in all-time app opens. There we go. Double click to drag that formula down across all of our rows. And now if we're ready to push this field back to HubSpot, we can do this directly in here. So we have export to HubSpot and we'll just click configure, set that up. Since I'm already working off of a coefficient import here, coefficient already knows what object we're working with, what the row has the header names. So we'll do most of the backend work for you in this example. But you can always do a write back from a fresh spreadsheet without having an import. So if you wanted to upload a list of contacts from an event or something like that, you can do that as well. Here you can see coefficient's already done all the matching of different columns from our spreadsheet with object fields in our CRM. And I'll write back all of them, but really what we care about here is the app usage field. Export, I could say just specific rows, so I could just highlight a few rows if I want to do that. In this case, we'll keep it simple and just do everything on the sheet. Coefficient takes a quick look, sees there's 237 rows ready to send back, and let's push that to HubSpot. There we go. So we did get some fails. So this would be, if you do get a fail, this would be because you're limited by your HubSpot restriction settings. So for example, if you were trying to update this field directly in HubSpot yourself, you would get the exact same error message in coefficient on the spreadsheet as you would if you were doing it directly in HubSpot. All right. Any questions there, Matt? Any thoughts before we jump into another example?
Yeah, I'll say for a second, the error is, how would I go about fixing that? You said it's the same sheet. So you essentially you can only show 100 at a time, you make the updates. But how would you fix that here in this use case?
So we take a closer look. This is our sandbox org. So sometimes our sandbox behaves a little bit differently. Like we are on a free sandbox account. So it might just be that we're limited in batch sizes.
Yeah, don't worry about it. That's helpful. It's going to be some limitation of your actual HubSpot instance. So this is next is I've gone through lots of, so I'm going to sit in the statement you said that I think is the most powerful. And it is, I don't want to wait on my product team. I'm just sit there. I just want you, it's almost never the product team's priority to create a ETL pipeline or some like data pipeline for you to create this. It's just almost never. So you can send an email or so you can update a lead score so that you can, it's almost never a priority. And what coefficient allows it is it gives you the data in your hands to execute. And so I have things like high touch or like these things that allow no code that allow admins to execute. And this is what the two-way, like I was talking about two-way. This is why coefficient is so powerful, is you can actually yourself pull, normalize in some way, transform, extract, transform, and load. This is a ETL process that you control as an admin, and that is amazing. So I'm just excited about this whole use case, and it just is a point, but it's exciting. This is really exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, super good points.
I will go one more. I've used things like Sync. I've spent thousands of dollars a month for the ability to do this, no code, and it was just done in minutes. That's what I mean. That's exciting.
Love it. Awesome. I'll quickly point out too, this is a bit of a newer feature we've launched in the past like month or two, which is actually setting this up on an export schedule. So there's two ways people are using two-way sync. One is you're manually coming into a spreadsheet, writing those formulas, making updates, dragging down to quickly make bulk updates, and then just pushing that back as you want. But now we've introduced export schedule where you can actually have this running in the background. So you don't have to be coming into your spreadsheet to make those updates. So if we go into here, I can turn this on. This is like that import refresh schedule that we just set where we said we want this to refresh our imported data importing into Google Sheets once a day at 9 a.m. I can then maybe say once a day at 10 a.m., an hour later, I want to push back all this data to HubSpot. The way this could work nicely is then I have my Snowflake import updating once a day at 9 a.m., my HubSpot import updating once a day at 9 a.m. I have these X lookup formulas that I've written. This could also be like sum ifs or count ifs to aggregate in different ways. And then every day it's going to actually push all of that updated calculations back into HubSpot at 10 a.m., whatever time I set, without me ever even having to open the spreadsheet. So that's a pretty powerful way to automate this whole process. You don't even have to come in, or if you're sick, or if you're on holidays, you don't have to worry about that data not getting updated in the way you want. Another example we see a fair bit is in the data cleanup space. So for example, if one of your clients has a sales rep leave the company and you want to quickly reassign all of their opportunities, of course, you can do that in HubSpot. Maybe you want some more complicated logic. Maybe you want to reassign opportunities based on the value of the deals or the industry, anything like that. Tons of flexibility you can do just by using spreadsheet formulas. So here, I could really write any formula I want. This could be a simple X lookup. I could even do a Command F to find and replace all. But we could say something like, if this date is below a certain date, then I will choose an owner ID, and I have this little owners table I've imported from my HubSpot org. I could write some kind of logic so it'll find whichever owner I want based on, if only I knew how to write these spreadsheet formulas a little bit better, maybe include an if statement. There we go. It'll actually use this logic to decide who should be the owner of these opportunities. And same way that I just wrote back that the app usage field over here, I can do that with owner ID, and it'll actually assign these contacts to a new opportunity owner. Similar if you want to assign a company to contacts or to a deal, anything like that. Great.
There's a question here just to make sure we get this. This is from Bill. It's like, can we grab data from HubDB? So this would be a non-traditional object. So HubDB.
I don't believe we'd support that just yet. That's something I can double check, but we are looking on ways to make it more, to open up the availability of what all we can import. So not HubDB. I'll have to take that one back and look into it, but all of your core standard HubSpot objects.
Yeah, Bill, my understanding, I don't think it does that either. And so where that's useful is because that's a lot of times what people are received. That is helpful.
Awesome. I'm going to quickly highlight one of our other newer features, which every company is obviously taking their stab at. How can we use AI, GPT to make our lives a little bit easier? And Coefficient's taking a stab at this as well. How can we take spreadsheets to the next level and really automate what you can do with them? So this example might seem a little gimmicky, but I hope it'll point you in the right direction of what you could be doing on your own end. So basically, once you have Coefficient installed, you'll get access to a series of 10 custom GPT functions that we've created. So these aren't out-of-the-box spreadsheet formulas, but if you have Coefficient installed on a spreadsheet, you can start using these right away without needing an OpenAI API key, anything like that. So on this example spreadsheet here, ICP details, we're going to ask GPT to come up with a value proposition for our business. And so I'm going to use one of these formulas just as an example. GPTX is our core formula that does that. So if I use, and you can see all the other ones coming in down below, they all do different variations of this, but we'll stick with the core one, GPTX, and I can write a statement. So let's say, write a value proposition and explain the main product or service sold by Coefficient as an example. So I could do that. If I want to make it even more dynamic and formula friendly, instead of hard coding in that word, I can actually reference a cell, which is of course why we're working in a spreadsheet. So instead I could say, I want to use an ampersand and then reference cell B2 up there. Now, of course, I get the benefit of being in a spreadsheet. If I wanted to change the value of B2, this formula will just rerun over and it'll find a value proposition for any other company. Just a simple example, but you could also do this with write an email to the user in this cell based on the industry they work on, which is in this cell based on their job title, which is this other cell, which can be pretty powerful. So I have this one, our value prop. Second formula is then turning that value prop into what does an ICP look like for that business, for our business in this case. And now what we're going to do, which I think is pretty cool, is I have this other HubSpot contacts import with a little bit more contact details, including their industry, their region. And over here, I've written some formulas. So the first one's pretty simple. It's just basically just concatenating, so joining together job title, company name, location, and industry. I could do this with it in all separate cells, just keeps it a little bit more organized. And then what's cool is here I've used another GPTX function, so GPTX convert. And I've actually written, and I've pre-written this one because it's tricky to write on the fly, but it's going to convert this summarized description of a contact into an ICP, so an ideal customer persona score from 1 to 10 based on the value proposition and the ICP definition that I've listed in the other tab. In a real life situation, I probably don't want to let GPT have all the control here. I'm probably going to fill in the bullet points of what is an ICP myself. So again, this is just showing off a little bit more than what might be the most practical solution, but it'll be cool to see how the effect works. So if I drag down these summarized details, and then if I drag down this ICP score, it'll take a second to do its thinking, and it'll basically score all of these out of 10 based on the definition that we've predefined. So this is cool. And then what I can do again is power this up with what I showed you all earlier. So I could do again, maybe an X lookup over here to that other table and push this ICP score back to HubSpot. So HubSpot's been coming out with some amazing GPT and AI features in the past year. But if there's something that maybe it can't quite do because of flexibility limits, this can be a great way to have that full flexibility in your spreadsheet. And again, push that live data back to HubSpot as often as you need. And sometimes, again, this comes back to using spreadsheet formulas and how easy they are. Maybe I don't want to push back a score from 1 to 10. Maybe I want to write some kind of formula logic where it's going to consider both the ICP score and the app usage amount. So maybe if app usage is over 1,000 and the ICP score is over 7, then I want to tag that contact as a hot lead, or I want to put in text categories for different levels there. Awesome. One final major thing I'd like to show here is what you can then do with the data once you get it into your spreadsheet to make it more actionable. So here we have this automation section, which is how to send your data to yourself by email or Slack alerts. So we're using Slack internally as a team at Coefficient. If you have email, that works fine, but Slack can just be so much greater because your team's probably already living in Slack. So if we come in here, we can say we want to get a Slack message when a condition is met. I can use this on a Coefficient import tab. I can also just use it on a regular dashboard like this. I could say whenever this sales amount goes over $1 million, send a congrats message to the sales team on Slack, send a screenshot of this entire dashboard. Anything like that is possible. In this case, we'll use that same place where we're calculating ICP score. So I can say whenever the number is greater than 7, let's say, and I'll make this my data range. So whenever there's an ICP score greater than 7, I want to get a Slack alert sent to this Slack alert demo channel. And there we go. And I'll even drag over my Slack. I hope I'm screen sharing in the right way. So y'all can see my Slack screen there. And here, this is what a sample alert would look like. So you can see basically a snapshot of that data and what the calculated ICP score is. Again, this could be a dashboard image. This could be a chart. Really powerful what you can do.
Frank, as I'm saying at this is what I'm left with is I can use a spreadsheet and it can do so many things. Are there I'm throwing it out, or you have users or customers, because I've done this a few times, which is go to ChatGPT, have it do a Google Scripts right for me, put it into one of these, and then like configure and transform the data and then push that. How are people thinking about different scenarios, and how are they learning to do all these formulas? What's the best way to learn?
So if you want to learn to write spreadsheet formulas, so we are doing some things there. So I haven't got into this yet, but there is GPT Copilot over here, which will do some of what you're thinking there. Pivot and Chart Builder, these are still in beta mode. So you can straight up tell Coefficient Copilot, build me a pie chart based on this table, and we'll put together something. Still in beta mode, we're still getting the right tweaks there to make really beautiful charts come together. But it can be a nice way to get something really quickly in front of you. Formula Builder is one of our more popular options. So here, maybe you or your team, your clients aren't as comfortable writing those more complex queries. I feel like I know every spreadsheet formula, but I still find myself coming back to write some of these niche formulas, like calculate the most recent Sunday before a given date, excluding holidays. And I don't want to just use up my mental capacity to figure out how exactly that logic should look. So I can come in here and here's some sample questions. We have very simple ones. Give me the sum of column A and B. But also if you wanted to write more advanced query formulas, you can just write in prompt and it'll categorize like that. And then the other one, which might be quickly becoming our most popular way to use GPT, doesn't quite work with HubSpot because there's no custom query writer, but it works very nicely with any SQL data source. So like Snowflake is a good example, but also if you have teams using Postgres, MySQL, Redshift. A lot of people hate writing SQL, and myself included in there. It's not always fun to dig through the syntax, make sure you're not missing any semicolons, anything like that. So with this GPT feature, instead of having to write your own SQL, you can actually just tell GPT, get me a list of my top accounts by number of opportunities won. Yeah, and always risky to do these GPT queries on a live demo because you never know what GPT is thinking today, but we found this to be pretty reliable. I'm going to take a stab at it. There we go. It gave it its best shot. It did return account ID, which might not be the most human-friendly field, but I could always come back here and I could say, instead of account ID, give me account name. And it'll actually know that we're trying to update the previous SQL, and it should give us that kind of view we're looking for. There we go. So this has been very popular, even among data teams, even among people that know SQL, but they're loving this as a way to just more quickly write those queries, check that syntax, all that good stuff. And once we're happy with it, we just click import, and that's a new live spreadsheet, live tab in our spreadsheet that we can update anytime.
I think probably other people feel this way. I feel overwhelmed with the possibilities. And that's probably why the templates are so popular, because they'll show you what to do and how to do. I see this and my mind hurts about, in a good way, what's possible. It makes me, why would I ever pick a BI tool in Sheets now? Do you have people, so it's like we have right now, we have this import, we have this transform, we've done the export uses. Are anybody using this now for just straight in a basic level, not even thinking, just hey, sometimes it's easier to just use a Google form to control what people can input. And instead of having them be in the CRM, just give them the Google form to fill out, and then it will auto translate. Do you have use cases like that, or is that something your customers are doing today?
Yeah, so very popular using forms. We do this ourselves with both Google Forms and Typeform. Both those you can have them set up so it's pushing the data directly into Sheets, and then could probably set that up in a way so it's sending it directly to HubSpot. But maybe you don't want to put it, maybe you don't want to send like the exact inputs that people are writing on their forms. Maybe that's not exactly what you want to send to HubSpot, right? Maybe people are filling in, self-evaluating, they're interested in different products, whatever. Maybe then you want to write formula logic to say, if someone is this type of persona and they filled out the form on this date and they're working for a company with over 1,000 employees, then summarize that as a green lead and just push that one value back to HubSpot. Maybe you don't need the entire form taking up your HubSpot space. So we definitely see that a lot, yeah.
I love it. To me, having done lots of implementations in HubSpot and sometimes in Salesforce and Dynamics, I sometimes don't want people in the CRM. Sometimes it's much easier if I give them a form to fill out and they don't actually need to take a user count. They can now do input in a Google Sheet. They don't even know it's a Google Sheet, and it will push that data into the CRM, and you can make sure it's the correct data because and use it as a filter. So you are enforcing process, and this is a great way of executing the enforcement of a process.
Yeah, we definitely see that. A lot of companies saving money on licenses, but not everyone necessarily needs a license if they're not as active in the CRM. But also gives you a lot of flexibility over like how exactly you're sharing the data. That's part of the benefit of being built on top of Google Sheets, and now we're also available in Excel. But Google's built really powerful sharing capabilities and permission settings, right? So you can build whatever you want in a spreadsheet, and then just using this beautiful share button up top, control who exactly you want to share this with, whether they should view it. Maybe you want them to be able to edit it. Maybe you want them to refresh your coefficient imports or not. All of those permissions are possible. And this way you can also share, you can build a report and share it with a customer that you're working with or a partner agency who you might want to not want to give them direct access to your CRM, but you want to share with them a specific set of accounts and account details, something like that, and keep that live so it's refreshing every day. We see that very, very commonly.
Yes, no one get angry at me from HubSpot, but let's talk reality. So this has been true for Salesforce for a while. You are per user seats. Now you must pay for HubSpot users to edit data unless you have coefficient and they're editing data from the Excel spreadsheet. So there's some use cases here that you will want to do that will actually be cost savings and give you more flexibility. There is no losing in doing this. So I just think trying to give some like very just tactical. You don't even need to know how to write a formula. Just know how to create a Google form with inputs and sync that back. And you don't have to buy a seat. You just don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd add to that too, like it's not just HubSpot, but also BI platforms. Their seats or licensing are expensive, right? There's a lot with like Tableau, many other BIs where you have to pay for every Tableau viewer license you want. People can't even consume that data, let alone manipulate it without having a paid seat. And if you're a large company, that adds up if you're giving every single sales rep a paid seat just to be able to view data. Whereas on the other hand, almost every company is either subscribed as an Excel or a Google Suite shop. You already have Google Suite licenses for all of your employees. And you can, again, take advantage of the sharing capabilities of Google Sheets and the free access that users already have.
Yeah. I think the CRM is really important, and you need users in the CRM, specifically if you're doing CS and you're doing like staying with the CRM, a customer relationship management, anything then you're doing like relational management. But if you're inputting data or you're visualizing and looking at data, if you're doing trends, if you have a target, if you have budget and financial planning, it's all those things that occur often by the executive suite, often by the finance department. You have to do this eventually. And this is one of the best solutions that I've seen to be able to do that in a cost-effective way that also gives you flexibility.
One feature I can highlight on that front too, that I think could be especially useful to solutions partners, is if you're often building the same types of reporting or processes for customers, whether that's like a specific version of a writeback or even some reports or dashboards you might be building in a spreadsheet, you've already seen that we have these templates that I've already covered where we've predefined, again, a HubSpot deals import, the exact fields that we want, the filters that we want, all of that's already set up. So now anyone that copies the spreadsheet, they don't have to do any of that work. All the hard work's done. They can literally have this dashboard ready in 30 seconds. But solutions partners could also be building your own templates. So if you're often building the same reports for either many different clients, or even if it's one client and they want a spreadsheet for each of their 4 regions or for each of their multiple like sales reps, Coefficients made this easier by allowing the possibility to duplicate both tabs and spreadsheets. If I duplicate a tab that I hear, let's say our Snowflake top accounts list, as soon as I duplicate that tab, in just a second, we'll see here a copy of top accounts has shown up. This is now a separate standalone import. I can have different filters, change the fields on this one if I want. Similarly, if you're building out a spreadsheet for a customer and you want to have multiple versions, maybe for different customers, you just make a copy of this entire spreadsheet. And those 6 or 7 imports that I've created, all of that coefficient logic gets duplicated along with the spreadsheet. So all I have to do is launch coefficient once on the new copy, and all of those imports show up. Again, I can then change the filters. So maybe I want one spreadsheet for each account I'm working with. I can then come in here and change the filters so that we're filtering on a different account, or whatever it is that I want to bring in.
Yeah, I love this. One of the things that Super thinks a lot about is how to replicate, standardize, because to standardize is to produce the same quality of work. So how do you, in a world of AI, where more is possible, faster, how do you standardize so you can deliver a more human touch, right? That's where we're going, last mile delivery. So if you have the race is, how do I codify my intellectual property and deploy it faster than others at a price point that makes sense? So when I look at this, really what I'm looking at is like the possibilities are endless, and that's where admins win. When the possibilities are endless, people pay you for what? To make defined possibilities to create reality. And so this is awesome. If you can copy and paste your like spreadsheet genius applied to very specific ways HubSpot's configured, you can win harder. And so I love this, Frank. So what I was like, part of what I want to leave is everything's possible. There's really nothing that's not possible. As long as you can suck it into coefficient, you can push, and then whatever data source you would like, there's some limitations of what they work in, but if they have it as something they can suck in, you can now take that, transform that data, and then push it back to HubSpot or visualize it in a Google Sheet, which is really what is just a BI platform. Like this is what people will do in the future. This isn't, I feel very sad for some other, because this is the documentation, and this is where AI will lead us, is places like Google Sheets and visualizations on top of it. And I think y'all are something special. Period. Like that's my opinion.
Hey, I won't disagree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. I think you nailed it. And yeah, like you mentioned, like there are some, like the number of data sources we work with. So right now there's like the mid 30s to number of data sources you can import from. But we're super excited about this new thing coming out, which we're calling any API connector, where you can actually take a little bit of technical detail, but we're making it as easy as possible. But you can put in details for any API that you can access, public or private, and import that data. So what that means is not just adding new data source that we've custom pre-built for our users, but you might even have an internal tool that has an API that you want to be importing data into your spreadsheet. other tools that are maybe more niche that we're not going to get around to building for another year or so because there's just a smaller, maybe very niche to your industry or something like that. We get a lot of requests for those types of tools, but we're just not going to build those as custom tools immediately. But you'll be able to use this any API to just put in those API details and start importing that live data.
That's a little scary, to be honest, in a good way. Um, Frank, do you have any other use cases?
I could go on for days and days, but I know we want to get into some FAQ questions,
Cool.
I think.
Yeah. I want to share a use case because what I want to show you is how,
Sure.
okay, so Frank is a genius, Matt is not. So I'm going to go in the, what happens when you get coefficient in the hands of someone who's not a genius, doesn't know everything, and has like a problem they had to solve yesterday and use coefficient to solve that problem where I can solve it over and over again very quickly. And it's all really ugly. I just like, what made your stuff look like before you like dive in? So that's what I want to show, talk through that about, and then we can take FAQs. So I'm gonna share my screen, and here's what I have. Everything froze on my computer. I know you're there. Everything on my side just froze. I have imported some fakish data and made changes so that it's not showing just like everything that I've ever done in my life. So I have a problem. Here's my problem. I'm sharing my screen right now. I have a problem. And you even say, I haven't saved it yet. My problem is I have to run commissions every single month. And so I have to do that and pay it by the 15th, which means I have to have submitted it by today. So last night, so when I was doing that, I had to go and confirm. And what do you usually do? Now there's stuff, there's like quota path, there's some others that you can use. And we actually use quota path, but we changed our entire commission and it's going to take me hours to get that logic back in. And I was like, okay, I just have to run it and get it right now. This is, we talk about always ended up in Excel. So what would I have done? I would have done an export out of it. So what did I do real quick? I just went in, I opened, I got coefficient, opened it up. And then what I have to do past this, which is really simple, is I just had to then convert these deals into a, like, cause we had different types. So I then have to run it. I have to run the types and the actual number by types and get those IDs over. So I have a deal converter page, which is, okay, show me the thing. It's ugly. I just want to show ugly, but it works. Is if I load that, this works, is it lists out, okay, close one partner, close one end user with partner, and you have different percentages you pay out based on the type, which then loads it. And then I have a formula, then puts it towards the end. So I have the actual amount. Then I take this amount, create on team commissions, and then I can have a whole commission that only takes this number and auto puts the commissions, and I have all of Mark's commissions instantly. And I now don't have to do anything. All I have to do is schedule the importer, and it will, and everyone can auto see. All I have to do is switch the endpoint here, and I just have to I have to copy commission tracker, turn it into April, and now it is automatically done. And I never have to think about it. That is what it went from me having to like manually do it to me not having to even worry about it. And I have it scheduled. That is an hour to 2 hours of my life every month that I will make better over time. This is ugly. No one sees it. Only I have to use it. But as I get it, and I'll have to take off commission payment and tracking to another department, or as we scale, that is the power of having coefficient to be able to execute. And like a real life startup, just got to get crap done. And that's why coefficient with Google Sheets is awesome, in my opinion. One of the reasons. Just want to share it because it's ugly, but it's what yours is going to look like at the beginning. Okay.
I love a good, ugly, practical spreadsheet. Nothing quite like it.
I can't hear you.
My audio.
Don't worry about it.
I was saying I love a good, ugly spreadsheet, Matt. It looks great to me. And I showed off those beautifully designed templates, but I'll admit we got our internal designer to take a once over and make sure that the charts were aesthetically pleasing and a nice color palette.
So we'll do Q&As now. It looks like a lot of if there's any.
Yeah, if
Q&As.
anybody's got any questions, put those in.
I saw one earlier that we'll do now is we talk about users and seats. What is the coefficient pricing model and how does it go up or how does it go down? And when would I have to pay versus not have to pay?
Yeah, good question. We have a we're very much in like the PLG product-led growth motion. So we have a very generous free trial. We don't want any blockers for people to get started and try out coefficient because we always say we have an amazing sales team here, but our best salesperson is the product itself. If you just install it, start importing from HubSpot, playing around with it, you're bound to fall in love. So a generous free trial, you're automatically started on our pro plan, access to all of our premium features. After that, our main plan is the pro plan, which starts at $99 a month annualized. And that one will include, the main thing you're getting that you're not getting on our free forever plan is automation. So if you want to automatically refresh your data every hour or every day, you can do that on our pro plan. If you're on a free plan, you'll be stuck using a manual refresh button. Might get you there some of the time, but really you want something that you can schedule and forget about, again, especially if you're on holiday or something and you want those reports to keep refreshing. And then since a lot of people on this call are interested in bi-directional sync, there are also some limits there. So we'll let you push, I think it's 500 rows a month or something back. But if you really want to be using that as a tool to automate your processes, then you'll want to be on a pro plan where you're not limited in terms of how much you can push back into your CRM. And then there's some other nice little benefits here and there, like Slack and email alerts, which personally are probably my favorite feature that we have, because I just love getting the data to people where they want them. So you won't get those alerts on the free plan, and you won't get our GPT features. So if you like some of that fancier stuff we looked at today, that's also coming with our pro plan. And then our pro plan is all self-service. People can just get started with it immediately. And then if you're working with a team that's 5 or 10 or 50 more licenses, then our sales team's happy to have a conversation and we'll set you up for success.
Yeah, and I'm going to share the screen because I think it's helpful. When I was first talking, I think it was helpful for me to understand is all roads really end up to pro if you want to have automatic, but there is a very generous free. I did everything you just saw me do on free as an example, right? But I have to push the button. But the thing is if you're doing any bi-directional support, you will end up going pro. And the next is when you think about users or licenses, it's not users that affect the data. It's not the people who like touch the data in the sheet. It's users who are setting up coefficient and manipulating the data from different sources. And that's a key differentiation. So it's your users will not be as much as you don't have a user per sheet. You already pay for that for Google Suite. I think it's just important to note.
Yeah, so we like to think of it as like builders and viewers, right? So we're not charging for that viewer end of things where, like I mentioned with Tableau, again, you're paying for every single viewer license. Here you're taking advantage of Google Suite in this case, where anyone can open a spreadsheet, consume the data, but then the analysts on your team or the operations people that actually want to be building reports or pushing data back into HubSpot, those are going to be the power users that'll definitely need licenses.
Roger that. Perfect. I do not see other questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the templates, is there like a best practice that you have for when you're setting up a new one? I know you have lots of templates in your library, but when you're setting up a new one from scratch, is there a way to make sure that what I'm putting in the template is actually going to make it over to wherever I'm trying to put it?
Everything works pretty intuitively and out of the box. The main thing I would say is you want to be careful to be using HubSpot default fields most of the time, because especially if you're using a template that you plan to use between multiple different companies with different HubSpot orgs. So any of the public templates you see on our website, we're very careful to only use fields that almost every company will have. And then an example of one that was trickier for us was we built recently a HubSpot MRR churn analysis template. And there isn't a default churn field. Many companies will call this field by different names, contract end date, churn date, things like that. So that one, we actually had to build in some custom logic where users can then replace that churn date field with contract end date, whatever they might be using. So the main thing is just using default out of the box fields. And then it's going to be very flexible, and just that simple make a copy of a spreadsheet action works great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Frank, do you have examples of customers using cohort reporting using this? So that would be that would be a good example of getting app data in, and if they're like how it's worked. But do you have people using cohort reporting inside of using coefficient?
Yeah, so you're talking there about creating their own custom cohort definition based on created date, something like that?
Yeah, create date and taking app data, pushing it out, doing cohort data, cohort analysis. There's different ways you can do that based on if it's just, did they churn or did they not churn with MER? You could also do it based on how long they've been in an app. So that's one thing, like doing a.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, especially like churn is a good example. So there's a new template we've been working on. A lot of these templates start off as like internal tools that we've just built for ourselves because we're also a PLG company, also using HubSpot. We have our own reporting needs. Often I'll build something for the team here, and we're like, great, let's anonymize the data, publish it on our website. So we do a lot of that with, churn being a perfect example where you might want your rows being like number of new customers grouped by the date that you had your first closed one deal. And then as your columns, you would have every subsequent month. So not calendar months, but like month 0, month 1, month 2, month 3. And you can get that retention triangle view of how many of your customers have churned after 1 month, how many customers have churned after 6 months, after 12 months, or the inverse being the more positive side, how many of your customers have expanded and gotten their second deal, hopefully a much bigger deal, 6 months later, 12 months later. So that's very common to see as well. And Google Sheets makes that very easy. I love it with when you're building a pivot table, any date field that you're using. So in that case, that example I was giving, you'd be using deal close date. If you throw a date field on a pivot table, you can actually just right click on it and say group by month or group by quarter, group by year. And Google Sheets kind of doing a lot of the heavy lifting of putting together those cohorted buckets based on sign up date in that case.
What I've learned from today is everybody needs coefficient and everybody needs a Frank.
Well, if someone has access to coefficient, then in one way or another, they'll have access to me.
I love it. I didn't, Dan, unless you see anything else, I do not see another question.
No, no more questions. Hannah's put some great resources in the chat. We also shared a package that is a supered and coefficient package so that you can get all these amazing resources, those templates, how to become a coefficient partner, how to become a super partner, and what that looks like together, because we are working together to make sure that you have access to all of those things that you need to be able to do your job at your organization better. So definitely check that out. I'll drop it in the chat again before you leave, and I will make sure that everybody that joined us gets access to that. Frank and Matt, I appreciate it. I love spreadsheets. I'm a data nerd, so I very much appreciated this, and I know everyone else really did too. So thank you very much for coming to our very first Stupid and Friends. Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
it's so much fun. Thanks for having me.
And I'll say there will be if I have anything to say, there will be a adopting supered solution featuring coefficient specifically about how to create your own templates and then copy them over and over. Okay. So
Absolutely.
thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great one. Have a great rest of your day. Wow, that was great. Loved seeing how connecting systems can increase efficiency and accuracy. Right, Supered friends? Coefficient just helps you get your data right where it needs to go the way it needs to get there. I'm curious, how are you going to use Coefficient to build a better ecosystem for you and your organization? Let me know. Until next time, bye, Supered friends.